And out front now, Tal Heinrich. She is spokesperson for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Tal, it's great to be with you, of course, here in New York. So, just to start with the limited flooding of the tunnels that we understand the IDF is doing. Israel says it's doing on a limited basis in tunnels where they do not believe hostages are being held. President Biden says that is an assertion that he cannot confirm it. How do you know for sure that there are no hostages in the tunnels being flooded?
First, Erin, regarding the tunnels, I cannot comment on operational military activity happening on the ground or anything strategic moving ahead. This is a question that you will have to refer to the IDF. What I can say is that we said in the past, the IDF spokesperson has said that we're looking at various ways to eliminate these tunnels. We have eliminated much of the tunnel infrastructure, but there are still many of them, as you heard from your reporter, also in the area of Khan Yunis, where our forces are now operating. And obviously, when we work on the ground to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime in Gaza, the hostages situation is the top of minds.
Yes. I'm curious, though, and I understand they're saying where they don't believe the hostages are, but a question to you just on an intelligence basis. If Israel knows where they are not, do you know where they are?
Well, again, this is a question for the IDF. What we know is that Hamas only responds to pressure. We have seen the release of hostages so far based on the outline that we agreed upon because thanks to the military pressure. And we continue to hit them hard because we want to reach the twofold goal, the mission that we have defined for this war.
So President Biden has warned Israel it's losing support, right? He said to the Prime Minister Netanyahu, you need to change your tactics and likely your government. Is there a response from the Prime Minister?
Well, first, Israel is a democratic state. The ones who choose the government, as you know, are the people of Israel. And right now, my country is not dealing with politics. Aaron, from left to right, there is a public consensus. We're all united right now around the goal. And the goal is to defeat Hamas. You know, when the terrorists targeted us on October 7th, they didn't ask who voted for which party. They didn't care. And, you know, some of these hardest hit communities, and I know that you've been to the southern areas, are honestly the people who are most staunch supporters of the Palestinian cause in certain areas.
Many of them were in those kibbutzim, yes.
Right.
So in terms of the civilians, General Clark was talking about how when you flood, there's unknown consequences at this point. Could involve, say, buildings coming down, right? Obviously, unknown at this point, as he lays it out. A lot of civilians have died. We know that. Israel says, the IDF says they've killed at least 7,000 Hamas members. Obviously, we can't independently confirm that. But I did recently speak to Jonathan Conricus, IDF spokesperson, and I'd asked him about a report that said that senior Israeli military officials said that they were basically killing 2 civilians for every Hamas member. And he called that a, quote, tremendously positive ratio. That if it was 2 civilians for every 1 Hamas, that's tremendously positive. How do you see it?
Well, it depends what you compare Israel to. If you compare Israel to perfection, of course, nobody's perfect. We don't want to see any civilian casualty. We want to ease the civilian suffering in Gaza. The IDF is going to such extents that no other Western military, no other military has done before to safeguard the civilian population in an enemy war zone. And I think that Israel is really defining the gold standard here of urban warfare. And if you compare the campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan, the civilian to combatant casualty ratio, then Israel, once the dust would settle, you will see that Israel compares favorably.
And I understand that. I understand that sort academically if those numbers are put out there when you talk about the gold standard. But yet what we are confronted with every day is a horrific loss of Palestinian life and a lot of agony and anguish. It is hard to hear that being the gold standard.
Every civilian casualty is a huge tragedy. There hasn't been a war in human history, even the most justified ones, that haven't seen a certain extent of collateral damage. But again, what we are doing on the ground, the fact that we are telling the civilian population where our soldiers are entering and when, this is unprecedented. And I'm sure that some, family and friends of U.S. Armed Forces service members watching us right now would wonder, well, who does that? Who announces where the troops are exactly going to operate so that civilians and the terrorists would know? This is what the IDF is doing because we're a moral military. We're a moral country.
I want to give you a chance to respond to another report that aired on CNN last night. My colleague Nema Al-Bagher was reporting on some of the money that has gone to Hamas, obviously a lot of money in recent years, and questions about whether Netanyahu's policies actually essentially aided and abetted that by allowing hundreds of millions of dollars in actual cash to go into Gaza from Hamas, despite concerns from Netanyahu's own government, some of which were raised by then Education Minister Naftali Bennett, who spoke to Nema, and here's what he said.
I stopped the cash suitcases because I believe that's a horrendous mistake to allow Hamas to have all these suitcases full of cash that goes directly to rearming themselves against Israelis. Why would we feed them cash to kill us?
So when he says he stopped it, he's referring to when he became prime minister. He's saying he stopped the Netanyahu policy that he refers to as cash in suitcases. Does Netanyahu believe now that he made a mistake by allowing cash to go in?
Well, again, we allowed money to go inside Gaza, not for Hamas, obviously. And it's not only a policy that happened, by the way, during this government, the previous Israeli governments, because we wanted the money to reach, the Palestinian people, to fix the water system that we saw Hamas has turned water pipes into missiles, the sewage system, and so forth. We wanted to.
But you knew it wasn't being used for those purposes because you could see the systems.
Listen, it's a major problem. Every time, and I think it's a repeating pattern here in history, every time the state of Israel has cut more slack to the Palestinian people, it backfired. It was answered with more bloodshed, more murder. And if you go back, you go back to the 1947 partition plan of the United Nations. We said yes, they said no, they started a war against us. We retreated from Gaza, we signed the Oslo Accords, we got suicide bombings in our cities. In 2005, the Disengagement Act from Gaza, we got missiles raining on our communities, and now we allowed in more, fake rehabilitation efforts, and we cut more slack to Palestinian workers who wanted to work in Israel, expanded the fishing zone. What did we get? The October 7th massacre. It's a repeating pattern.
All right. Well, Tal, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.